name is Brandon Davenport. Today, we're going to be talking about notice services versus lien right software. I have an esteemed guest on the phone with us today. We got Ayla from Waste Connections over here with us. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Ayla's experience. Before we get into it, I'm going to make a quick intro of myself. Ayla, if you don't mind, I'll pass the mic over to you, make a quick introduction, and then we'll get started. I'm coming to you live from Austin, Texas. I did work in the New Orleans headquarters for a little over 2 years at Levelset. I'm a proud Tennessean, that's to say the truth. And I'm a payment expert over here at Levelset, and now have the good fortune of leading 11 other amazing payment experts on my team. My team is called the Incenter Blocks, for those that care. Ayla.
Hello, everyone. I'm the credit and collections manager for Waste Connections. I've got responsibility for protecting the AR in 10 states, and I have about 100 remote offices up and down the West Coast, including Alaska. I've been in the waste industry for 22 years. And before that, I was in the construction industry for 4 years. So, 25, 26 years using lien and bond rights to protect the company's AR.
Amazing. Before we actually get into the meat of our slides, again, the conversation today is indeed about notice services versus lien right software. And it's going to be through a lens of Ayla and her experience, someone that's been with the Levelset family for a long time now. Of course, throughout the conversation, I'm going to help differentiate with some of the questions that I have. So without further ado, Ayla, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about that first experience that you had when you were using a notice service and some of the challenges that you initially dealt with.
Yeah. Well, honestly, everything was a challenge with our notice service. You got to remember, I've been in the industry a long time, and while we've had computers to help us, the notice service that we had been using was entirely manual. For those of you who may be a little younger than me, we actually would email or even fax over an order. So if we had a particular project that we wanted them to send a notice of right to lien on, we would do them one at a time. Again, we would email them. More often than not, we would fax that request over. And that was it. We would put it in their hands, and we would hope that they did everything correctly for us. So we would just wait, at the end of the construction project. If we needed proof of service, or if we wanted to get a copy of the letter or anything, we would have to reach back out. And again, to kind of show my age, when I say proof of service, we would be looking for those little green cards that the post office used to give us, because you couldn't just look up tracking on the web back then. It wasn't that easy. The notice service also wasn't very helpful with reminding us about when deadlines were coming due. That was entirely on us and on our tickler files, and trying to manage that, just using a paper calendar and counting out days for when the deadlines were, keeping in mind that deadlines change from state to state. So it was really a very difficult process. If we wanted to do research on ownership, we had to do that ourselves. Frequently, that required us to go online to more of a paid, geodata type of thing, where now tax assessors, you can hop on the web and look up an owner information on a tax assessor's website. But that wasn't the way it happened 20 to 25 years ago. So you'd have to go in, you'd pay for those subscription services, you'd log in, you'd try to find ownership. It was just super labor intensive on our part, just to fill out that order and fax it over and hope that the notice service was doing all the right things after we gave that job to them.
Yeah, Ayla, it's important, and thanks for your testimony there. It's important that we dig into something that you mentioned there. When you talk about state deadlines being different, we actually have a few states across this great country that are coming up on some deadline changes, some requirement changes. at the start of the new year. And because of that, there oftentimes in the market is a lot of uncertainty around, okay, well, if I start a project in 2021 and it rolls over into 2022, like, am I subject to the previous requirements versus the old requirements? And Ayla and I had a chance to hang out on Monday and chat a little bit. And you told me a really great story about that calendar, where in the past, when you're using a notice service, if there was a project that started within a certain time frame that carried over into 2022, you told me a little bit about what you had to do to be prepared. Do you mind telling the audience a little bit about it?
Uh, well, it was just we were teasing a little bit on that call about the old way of doing things, where you would just use the Boolean numbers on your calendar. And for those that don't recognize what that is, it's buying a calendar, a paper calendar, where you actually have the number of days into the year. So you have 360, 4 days, 365 days in a year. So, what day is today? Today happens to be day, oh, how about that, day 300. So if you had a project that you put in November on, let's say, day 340, and you have 90 days at the end of that project, you could very well carry that into the next year. So you'd end up with, instead of 340 plus 90 days, that's more than 365. So then you'd have to remember, well, wait a second, then when does that make it in the next year? And go to your paper calendar for the next year and find that Boolean number and figure out, oh, that's the date that I need to send my, I need to file my lien. It's just math, but it can become a little bit confusing, especially over that time frame. I remember one time I ordered a calendar and my office admin didn't order the one I asked for, and it came with no Boolean dates. And I'm like, I can't use this. So we had to frantically, find me exactly the one that I wanted to get those dates in. And with Levelset, you don't have to do that. It's such a pleasure for Levelset to take over all of that math and calculating deadlines based on the state that the project is in. Super, super easy.
Yeah. Sounds like no more wrong calendars, and it sounds like no more potentially pre-ordering calendars as well. But the way that you describe it, right, it is using a notice provider, but there is a lot of also in-house processes that you maintain at the time in order to make the engine churn so that you were protected. When you made the switch over to Levelset, though, were you considering any other notices services or in-house processes that could potentially bolster the system? And ultimately, I guess, why did you decide to go with Levelset during that evaluation phase?
I did look at a couple of other services, but honestly, I didn't really find anyone that fit well. There wasn't a culture fit, or their process didn't really offer me anything that was a value add, as opposed to me just doing it in-house. So after kind of vetting 2 or 3 services, and being amazed at the price they wanted to charge us, I thought, well, maybe it is time to just bring this in-house. And I started looking then into software packages that we might load into our system. And same thing, I wasn't really happy with any of that. Just because of the added work it was going to add to my office, my remote offices. So, I was thinking about this in preparation for our call, and I honestly don't even remember how I found Levelset. All I can tell you is I'm so glad that I did. It probably was kind of a Google search, and so I did set up a demo with them. And everything that I wanted was there. The ability for the system to educate us and stay up to date on state by state laws, the ever critical deadlines to make sure that things were going to be counted correctly. They took that one step further. They email out to me and my team when we've got a deadline approaching. So, it's not just that they, calculate the date for us and then we have to do the tickler. They're the tickler file as well. So we started talking price. Price was right in line with what we wanted to do. Waste Connections is a big company, but that doesn't mean that we want to overpay for our service. And so, we started with Levelset probably about 6 years ago. Again, I was teasing with Brandon. I've been with them longer than he has. And I've had the pleasure of working with some great people there and watching Levelset, literally change their name from Lien to Levelset. And, we were one of the beta testers when they started expanding their services. It's been a wonderful partnership over the 6 years or so that we've been using them.
For sure. And that's a good transition, actually, Ayla, because you talk about the long time that you've had as a relationship with Levelset and how you originally got the beta test, new things, new products that came out over the course of that long time you've been with us, which is an appropriate time to talk about, like, now that you've been and have had a chance to reflect, how would you compare us to some of these past processes?
Honestly, I wouldn't even begin to compare the service level that we get from Levelset is just, it is truly incomparable to what we were getting from our old Lien service, where it was, literally just a guy or two in an office and a fax machine. The opportunity that we've had to grow our internal process with Levelset, so that we could add some automation, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. It was great when we started with Levelset. We were still entering the project information ourselves. So as opposed to writing it down on a piece of paper and faxing it, we were going into Levelset's, we'd log into Levelset and enter that information, copy it out of our billing system and put it into their system. And it was a little double work there. And some of the remote offices weren't really happy with that. But as we started using it more and more, we started looking at ways that we could automate that process. And that was something that, again, just calling up and talking to my account rep, we were able to think of ways that would make the process better on our end, the programming that would need to happen, and again, what the cost would be on that, and everything just, it was just such a natural collaboration, and the progression of moving us from this copy paste, manual-ish hybrid process we were using to something that was a lot easier and more automated, so that my team didn't have to struggle with anything. It just, you guys took that on, created a great process for us, and just helped us implement it across the board. It was a fabulous experience.
For sure. And I want to help contextualize for the audience here. Again, encourage you all to ask questions for Ayla and myself. Waste Connections is a well-known brand, but for the audience here, I'm looking through our list and I'm seeing a mix of suppliers. I'm seeing a mix of subcontractors as well, even some equipment lessors that have joined us today. Again, thank you all for joining. But Ayla, tell the audience a little bit more about Waste Connections and typically who your customer is, whether that's a subcontractor, general contractor, property owner, et cetera, to help contextualize automation for the group.
Oh, sure. A lot of people don't really think that much about garbage, and if we're doing our jobs right, then you shouldn't have to think about garbage. But Waste Connections is actually the third largest garbage hauler in the United States. We also are the largest hauler in Canada, and we do a full life cycle. So as it comes into Levelset and construction projects, we might be hired directly by the homeowner. So they're doing a roofing project or something, and they want to have a box hauled, and they order it themselves. So it would be a single property. And for that, we are both an equipment lessor because the box is ours. We're a service provider, as in an employee, because our drivers are the hauler for that box. Same thing, but on a bigger scale. If it's, let's say, a Costco or a big building that's being built, they might want our construction boxes and have us haul the things to the landfills. So we might be hired by the general, by a subcontractor, by the owner of that bigger project. So we can be a sub, we can be a sub. Occasionally we can be the general contractor. So truly, again, we could be an equipment leaser. So we have all kinds of ways and levels that we approach Levelset for notices.
Yeah, that's perfect. And the context there is really important, right? Because over 80% of the states in the US have different notice requirements. So that's giving you 40 different variables. You just listed off 5 different project roles you could potentially be on as well. You multiply that. Now we're looking at hundreds of different scenarios. And if you don't have everything organized in the first place, then you might put yourself in a position of risk. And so now when you have the bones in place, tell us a little bit more about the actual automation piece.
Sure. Our IT department, we've always been very, risk averse to the idea of hacking. So when I approached our IT department, they said, you can do whatever you want, but we aren't giving any third-party vendor any kind of access to our customer database. So we thought, well, that's okay. Again, we have a very collaborative relationship with Levelset. So we started talking about other ways we could get that data into the system. And it just turned out to be a super simple thing. We created a report that pulls out all of the information that we need. Again, for us, what kind of role we are. Are we the sub? Are we the sub-sub? Are we the general? Who hired us? What the property address is, just everything that you would normally fill out a job information sheet for is pulled out by date. So we can do this, ad hoc. We can do it once a month, once a week. Once a month is a little bit risky for us. Once a week, every day, if it's a bigger site that's doing a lot of construction work. We just pull that into an Excel format. It gives us the opportunity to review it one last time. And maybe there's somebody on there that we know we don't want to get the notice of right to lien, which personally irritates me. But we can just remove that row off of our data file and then email it over to Levelset. And all the data is pulled from our computer system. It just flows into Levelset's system. Automatically loads up all of that data, and then at the end of the night automatically generates the notice of right to liens based on the state that the project is in, because again, this file could have 3 or 4 or 5 different states on it, and we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to separate them by state. We just send it on over and it's automatically pulled into the system. Those letters are sent out. Super easy. When we were doing this without that automation, we were doing about 400 project addresses a year. And when we started this process, we more than doubled it. We started going up to about 900 to 950 projects a year. And we did it in about 25% of the time. So huge time savings, a lot more protection for our construction projects. And literally, it's nothing harder than pulling a report, reviewing it, and sending it off.
Perfect. And I'm going to actually go back a little bit to when we were talking about first joining Levelset and what that transition process looked like. Ayla, you obviously have a lot of people that you're responsible for, making sure that you're eliminating as much risk as possible for the organization. Processes are being adhered to as well. And we're at an interesting time for the country's economy right now, and also for the construction industry in particular in the US, where over the last few months, we've actually seen the greatest amount of resignations. In September, we saw 4.4 million people in the country leave their jobs. And the construction industry it's not exempt from this as well. We have a lot of people that are just now getting fresh, starting new, in credit positions, in office admin positions, in credit manager positions. It's giving people opportunities to upskill themselves and get promoted as well. And because of that, the transition process to an entirely new process can sometimes be daunting. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looked like for you all?
I completely agree with what you just said. I've been blessed, and our company has been blessed by actually, from an industry average, a lower turnaround or turnover rate. So my collectors are long-term professionals. I think part of that is, I'll give a little toot out to us, our culture at Waste Connections. But when we do bring in those new people, I take a little bit of time, with them. I do some of the training with them, but we've also reached out and had Levelset actually do training for us. When I was trying to bring in 3 or 4 people in the state of California, I did my normal training, and then Levelset very graciously offered, probably shouldn't say this on here, offered to do free training for an hour with my team. Which was just an absolutely incredible thing. I used to have to pay attorneys to do that for us, and I didn't have to do that this time. So the transition process or training, is just super easy. And lien law, for those people on the call, it's a confusing and very detail oriented specialty in AR collections. And it's I don't even know how to explain it. It's just the collaboration and the generosity in time in teaching us how to use the product, or again, I hate to throw out the buzzword collaborate, but if we have a problem and we don't see the answer, Levelset has always been open to talking about what the process is, and even again, if y'all don't have that answer for us, helping us create that answer, create a process, train my people. It's just been an incredible experience for me and my remote team.
For sure. And don't beat yourself up for using collaborative as a buzzword there. Like, I think it's appropriate that you talk about Waste Connections culture. We've talked about Levelset's culture a little bit as well. And, when we think about what we take pride in, you talk about your experience, is the most 5-star experiences that our customers end up having. We actually have what we call our Taylor Swift wall over here at Levelset. It's a fun thing that our culture has evolved over time surrounding, of course, Taylor Swift. And so every time we get a 5-star review from one of our customers, we put another picture of Taylor up on the Taylor wall. And I think that is a small microcosm of what we're talking about, where cultures do align, and it makes the transition process a little bit smoother for both parties.
You need to take a picture of that Taylor Swift wall, and that needs to be your new, billboard behind you.
Yeah, I'll do it. I do one of these about every single month, so why not? No, but thanks for sharing. And as we wrap up this first segment of the conversation today, before we talk a little bit more about the product, what other general advice can you give to other credit managers around the country, around lien rights perhaps, but also additional measures that they can take to provide secondary levels of security?
Honestly, one of the things I always tell people is liens and bond rights are some of the strongest security out there. It's easy to put those on. It shouldn't be a fight internally, and it really shouldn't be a fight externally either. Again, garbage sounds crazy, but we actually have salespeople. And, if I get a salesperson that says, oh, no, we can't send out that notice, it's going to, chase my customer away. I say, no, honestly, that preliminary lien notice, pre-liens, whatever you want to call them, it's just a letter. And it actually, in my mind, enhances our image. Again, we're the garbage company. You know, we don't necessarily have this professional image out there. But when we behave professionally and we send out this really professional letter, it says, we know what we're doing. We're professionals about it. We have an expectation of payment. And we, quite frankly, we expect you to pay us. It's not you know, you say it's not a bad thing to use the word collaborative. I would argue it's not a bad thing to say we expect to be paid for our services. That's why we're all in this business. I have found in my 20, oh my God, years, that really the only time contractors get upset about receiving a notice of right to lien is when they really didn't intend to pay us anyway. It's that whole rob Peter to pay Paul thing. And you just hope that the guy gets another job so he can pay you, you know, 3 months later. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want my company to become a bank. So we send out those notices of right to liens. Our salespeople, you know, I've worked with them long enough now that they know it's nothing. It's not a threat. You know, the letter very clearly says on there, it's not a lien. It's just a certified letter that lets them know, lets the bank know, lets the owner know. Whoever state by state has to get that notice, they get the notice. Waste Connections is a professional organization. We manage our accounts receivable in a professional way. And we just move on from there. So don't let the process scare you. Don't let your salespeople scare you. It's a normal thing in the construction industry for these letters, these notices of right to liens and bond notices to happen. And you are enhancing your status as a business when you do this. And again, I will tell you that the way that Levelset has helped us in doing that, you know, the notices come out, they're timely, they're professional looking. It's just it's something that honestly should just be ad hoc. You know, it should be SOP, just standard operating practice. You should just always do it.
Absolutely. And the way that you describe it just now, like the expectations that we should get paid for our services, it harkens back to like kindergarten, right? The golden rule, like do unto others as others would do unto you. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Funny how it still applies even later on in life in this profession. But you talk about something before we transition, about like don't letting sales scare you from not wanting to maybe send notices. For the other folks on the call today, in the audience, what might be the number one selling point in your mind as to why a salesperson would maybe want to protect their lien rights even more often?
Oh my goodness, you're throwing me something I hadn't thought about. You know, it's a company by company thing, just like most other salespeople. Our guys are incentivized with, you know, sales bonuses. They get commissions on their thing, on their sales, and that's one reason why they, you know, they come forward and say, well, no, I don't want to do this. They want this to be as unconfrontational as if a letter is confrontational, but as unconfrontational and as easy as possible for the customer. And I understand that and I appreciate that. I'm not trying to make anything difficult for them either. But just telling them that if they sell some bad business and that customer doesn't pay, short of bankruptcy, we actually reverse their commission. So this gives the salesperson a real push to send that out, because if we send out that notice of right to lien, usually that's all we ever have to do. And it puts us at the top of the payment pile. I say that as much as we're still in computer systems, the alphabet is the alphabet, and W is pretty far down in the alphabet. And if you're a smaller contractor, even big ones, if they are taking the practice of paying by alphabet, we're pretty far down on that. And this will always push us up to the top of the level if they know that there's a notice of right to lien. And sometimes it's just as simple as that, as explaining It's just a letter. It's just going to elevate us to the top of the payment pile, and it's going to ensure that you get your bonus.
Yeah.
You know, money talks. We're all AR people. Money's
Yeah.
a big thing.
No, that's helpful context there. And, to your point there about like making a bonus, I've never met a salesperson that doesn't want that, doesn't want to hit quota. We actually have a hand raised from the audience. Linda Perrette, I hope I'm pronouncing your name. I'm going to actually let you dial in on the conversation and ask a question. Give me one moment. Go ahead, Linda.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I just wanted to check to see how Ayla handles releases for when she receives those requests.
Let me repeat the question back. I want to make sure that I heard it well. Linda, it sounded like you asked for the audience today, how should I handle releases specifically? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. So we are going to be talking about releases. Ayla, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with releases and how they work in conjunction with notices. And later on in the conversation, I'll actually talk about our toolbox and how it addresses releases / waivers.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks, Linda, because I didn't even really think about that. I was only thinking about the front end of all of this. We all know that as you send out notice of right to liens, you are going to get requests for releases, whether they be conditional or unconditional, progress or final. And part of managing that is, again, the training, making sure that since I have totally remote offices, I don't have any of my team sitting, near me. We go through some training one-on-one with each person. If we needed to do bigger training, that was part of what Levelset did for us, like down in California. All of my team has been well trained in that if they get any kind of a waiver, if they don't understand it, or if the customer has sent the customer's waiver, they know if they don't get any part of the legalese in there, to send it over to me. They also know at any point, if they just don't want to deal with the waiver that they received, you can go into Levelset and actually produce, and like Brandon said, I'm sure he's going to show us this, but you can go right in, pull up that project, and then pick any one of the usually the 4 common releases, those unconditionals versus conditionals, and the finals versus the progress, and it'll pre-populate 90% of the information in there. It makes sending out those waivers super easy. If you use their platform, it even stores for you copies of those, so at any point you can go back in and look at what's been sent out to the customer. Is that helpful?
I think I put Linda back on a mute perhaps, but Linda, if you do have more questions related to this, when we get back over to the lien waivers portion of the presentation, please raise your hand again. Would love for even more specific questions come up. Thanks again for chiming in. So this transitions over to the toolbox. We call it the construction finance toolbox over here at Levelset, of all the different offerings that we have to empower credit managers, empower CFOs, and empower ops revenue related people within an organization to have everything that they need to mitigate as much risk as possible and put themselves in a position to get paid as fast as possible as well. Looks like I saw the chat, Linda. Looks like we got your question answered. Awesome. Again, don't hesitate to unmute again and ask any questions later on in the conversation. With Lien Rights Automation, we talked a lot about Ayla's experience with notices. She's now touched upon lien waivers as well at this point in the conversation. And really, when we boil it down to the Lien Rights Automation point of it, that's what it is. It is about documentation and having the right thing coming up at the right appropriate time so that we create an amicable experience for every party that's involved on the individual project. Ayla, if you don't mind, this second bullet point right here, receiving alerts about upcoming paperwork and deadlines based on job infos that you've entered. It's a part of the automation process. And so, some people they side in two camps, really. Like, I don't want a bunch of notifications because I'm already getting a bunch of emails, et cetera, per day. And then some people are like, yeah, like, go ahead and give me all the notifications. I'll sift through them. Which camp do you reside in?
I would rather receive 100 emails and only need 5 of them than to not receive the one that I really needed. Having said that, everything that I get, all of these automated messages, as far as deadlines popping up, to me, they're all critical. So I get them, and the remote office that's actually in charge of that project gets them. The other day I was able to, I received them, and I noticed that about 5 or 6 of them were with one particular office. And so I was able to reach out to Callie and say, hey, you've got a lot of deadlines, that are really coming up now. Do you need help, or are you able to manage, all reviewing each one of these on your own? And she, she was actually very sweet. And she said back, she's like, did I do something wrong? No, you did everything right. And that's why you're getting these notices. And I was just reaching out to see, do you need some help today? And she was very, very sweet. She's like, actually, I've already done all of it. And that was,
Amazing.
First probably 10 minutes of her day.
There you go. And that's a great testimony that you share there with someone that, rolls up into you, reports to you. You're able to have that oversight. You're able to help first within your own organization. It's actually one of our core values over here at Levelset, allowing for you to put yourself in a position where you're able to collaborate and get ahead of potential issues down the road. So you're looking at locations as potential things that pop up, as like, maybe I'll message Callie here, or I'll message this other credit manager here and get a sense of what's going on. Any other indicators that you might look through the mass notifications to prompt action as someone that's overseeing a lot of other individuals?
Every now and then when I find a little bit of time in my day, I'll also use those just to kind of go in and spot check the work that my team is doing, just to make sure. And that has proven helpful. I don't consider rent charged on a container to be a substantial service. To me, it's the pickup and the haul that's that substantial service. So I've been able to go in there, and I did see one of my team was using the last time we charged rent as the last day that we provided service. And I went back in, I amended the information in Levelset to make sure that our calendar was maintained properly. And then I reached back out and talked to that person and said, well, she shall remain nameless, but, and said, I just want to be sure you understand this, because I think we've got a little misunderstanding about what substantial service is. It's always the haul, the last haul, not when did we last charge rent. So I use it a little bit for a training tool. It's good for that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And you actually remind me of, as I mentioned, we're headquartered out of New Orleans. I'm coming to us live from Austin, but we have a partner, Pool Corp, as well, that's over in Covington, Louisiana, just across the lake there. And you sound exactly like their team as well, and exactly how they use it from an oversight perspective, for all the different offices that they have throughout the country as well. When we shift over and talk about automation and then transition into research, you gave some really great context there, Ayla, with you having a lot of different project roles with the different kind of organizations that you work with throughout the country. And with job research, whether you're a supplier, equipment lessor, subcontractor that has at minimum 2, but perhaps 3, 4, 5 layers to the bank at the top of the payment chain, or the lender, surety, if it's a public job, there's a lot of digging that can happen to make sure that you unearth who those parties are involved, so that you actually are going to do it correctly when it comes to protecting your payment rights. Ayla, in your own experience, you already talked a lot about the research aspect, but any stories that maybe stand out from your experience with Levelset where you felt like you were maybe many layers removed from the people at the top of the payment chain, and you were surprised by what our team of data professionals and researchers found?
Well, not really surprised in the sense that 99% of the time when we've got something wrong and your research team reaches out and they say, hey, you guys gave us this, but we found that. I have so much confidence now in Levelset's research that I used to go in and say, well, how did you find that? Because your team is so good at explaining why they found something different. I will admit 9 times out of 10 now, I just pencil whip it and say, nope, whatever you found, I'm sure is correct, because our sales team isn't necessarily, I mean, they're getting this information from maybe the subcontractor. Again, we're a sub, and they don't necessarily know. We used to spot check it. We just always found out that Levelset's research was better than our own research. But again, the opportunity to even have you guys reach back out and say, we could even make that automated. I will tell you, for the people on the call, you can say, you know what, always trust Levelset. And I probably should do that because usually I do trust Levelsets, but I still want to see it myself. We use a $1 threshold for even greater levels. I think normally we get your Scout Research Pro if it's a big job. And for us, a big job would be, let's say, $50,000 or more. Then we automatically, again, it's an automated process within Levelset. You guys automatically grab anything that's more than 50,000 for us and run it through Ultimate, where you just really, truly dig down into the whole thing. And that has been pivotal in a few unfortunate cases where we did have to go to court. And the documentation that we had when our attorneys started looking at it had some errors in it, but luckily the Levelset research was correct, and we were able to move forward in litigation because your research was better than ours. And that has, like I said, that's been pivotal at two cases at one of our landfills over the last few years.
Absolutely. And what you talk about there, it makes me think of a common misconception with research across the country, actually. And it's about who the actual property owner or developer is at the top of the payment chain. And, what we find in some cases, we're in a year where there's the most mergers and acquisitions in the country's history as well, right? It's a lot of record-breaking things happening this year, and that's one of them. A lot of organizations buying other organizations in construction. And because of that, you end up with subsidiaries, even for real estate developers and property owners, you end up with holding companies. And the misconception, right, is that, well, I'll just take what the salesperson gives me and send it up and I'll be good to go. But if there has been some kind of change in actual ownership, if you're missing out on the parent company or that holding company, and now they're not a part of the conversation, right? Now there's a gap and they don't even know about it. And it's all because of what we're talking about right here with the market and us changing, which is a good transition point into talking about job radar alerts. With so many things changing and happening across the country, another common trend that we've seen, and again, it's another one where we've hit record highs in the country, bankruptcies. We've seen the most for whatever reason. People are out leveraged from a cash flow standpoint, balance sheet, taking on too much debt, you name it. And what's causing some ripple effects after that, of course, is, again, working with new folks. Same GC that you worked with for a long time, same property owner that you worked for a long time, a lot of projects, they're not around anymore. Not too different from the great resignation that we were talking about, working with new people. And because of that, new relationships are starting to unfold this year. And it's going to continue to go down that route over the course of next year, the year after that, the very beginnings of it, which is exciting in some instances. It's out of unfortunate circumstances, right? But that's just one of the things that Levelset partners are able to understand and see. And I'm hearkening back to bankruptcies, able to get ahead of some of the issues that are on your projects, potentially before you even get there. Other mechanics liens that are being filed on projects that you're working on, most of it's county recorder data anyways and filed. Our team is able to extract that information and put people that come in later on the job, such as Waste Connections, right? Very rarely are you the first organization on a construction project. Now you're able to have a little bit of foresight and see, okay, wait, did the concrete people get paid fairly? Okay. Or did the electric folks that came through after that, oh, it looks like they filed a lien with the people at the top of the payment chain. Okay. Now, folks like Ayla are in a position where they can see the storm that's up ahead, know what to do, know what levers to pull internally in order to weather it appropriately. We're always adding new insights as well, such as tax liens that are being added as well as of recently. Ayla, not to put you on the spot for this section, but anything to add around job radar alerts and anything that you've gained or potentially educated yourself on because of what we're able to forecast down the road?
Well, first, let me correct you. Garbage is usually the first thing on and the last thing off of every job site.
Okay.
Because you think about it, even if it's just excavation and they have, they're breaking ground, that dirt's got to go somewhere. So we are, like I said, very frequently the first things on and the last things to go. But yeah, when we get these job radar alerts, particularly when a lien has been filed on an address that we also have lien rights, I always take those and take a deeper dive into our AR. Is that customer paying us quickly? Or am I starting to see something that's, that's troublesome? Are they pushing a credit limit? Are they running a little bit past due? Is there days to pay? Is it just slowing? And so it's an early warning system for me to go in and take a look at that. And then I can reach back out to the remote office and say, you know what, I'm not hearing great things. Maybe we want the salesman to go and just check out that job site. Are the workers still there? Does it look like everything is going well? Or they're past due and I'm starting to get concerned. So we got to pick up the phone, even though it may be a little bit earlier than normal. Let's pick up the phone because somebody didn't get paid and we're on that job site too. So really helpful for that. Those alerts are extremely important.
For sure. And you mentioned the salesperson again and how they get looped in to the conversation. And if they're proactive and, they care about that relationship, I'd imagine they'd be pumped and excited to get this kind of information from their local office that, wow, like I have an opportunity to go learn something, to maybe amend a relationship, potentially be able to help in some capacity as well. Is that the kind of responses that you get from them?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. In our company, we don't have an adversarial relationship. A lot of times in some companies, credit and sales are, cats and dogs. But my team has gone a long way in proving that, again, we're not the sales prevention department. We're here to support. We're here to make sure that we get paid. Because if we don't get paid, the salesman doesn't get paid. And so I am very proud to say that our sales team is actually happy and excited to reach out to us, to the collectors and the credit people and say, maybe they hear something on the street, can you just tell me? I was going to go and start a new project with ABC Corp. And I heard from somebody else that they're not looking so good. So I can, run through and do a little vetting. I can go into Levelset and see how have they paid other projects, not just even mine, but how have they paid other vendors that are using Levelset. So it's again, it's not just the job radar. It's just the opportunity to go in and see how other contractors are getting paid through the Levelset program.
Absolutely. I'm going to talk a little bit about lien waiver solutions. So Linda, if you need any extra context here, by all means, raise your hand again. More than happy to help answer some questions. And, when we talk about Ayla's experience, sending over their file on either a daily, weekly cadence, whatever makes the most sense, depending upon that project. After getting that information from there, as you can see, connecting the data can be as easy as one click to get your waiver out the door, have it already signed, and help the paperwork process, avoid any potential bottlenecks. It can sometimes be a common excuse for people like amongst the payment chain of, hey, I haven't got this waiver yet. No, now you can put the power in your own hands again and make sure that you're using a standardized template as well. 3 of the 50 states require notarization. With Levelset, you can have that taken care of as well, depending upon your preference, if you have a notary that you trust. And that's really it. Electronic signature, and it's out the door. It can be as simple as that, Linda. We'll wrap up with payment profiles and what they mean for an organization. Not too different from job radar alerts. They fit within the same bucket that we call data over here at Levelset. And what it allows for you to do in this environment for construction where there's so many new relationships that's happening, people are trying to grow and capture market share because of what happened over the course of the past 18 months. Now there's a chance to be able to enter into a relationship with a little bit more context about who they are, about some of the people that they work with, some of the common contract terms that they potentially have on some of their projects, where they work, and even get qualitative information here as well. What you're seeing on the left side of my screen is a screenshot where it is going to give you quantitative data, how fast they pay, how slow they pay, but you're also going to get some of these qualitative experiences where people give their testimony. Yep, it was great working with Richards Construction. They were fantastic, great people over there too, or it wasn't so great for whatever reason. Looking forward to maybe potentially continue the relationship with them in the future, but X, Y, and Z needs to improve. It has to be a balance of both. We'll transition into questions, comments from the group. I know I need to go back and look at the chat. Ayla, anything else that you want to maybe potentially add for the audience and for the group as we finish out today?
Nothing other than if anyone on the call wants to talk to me personally, I'd be happy to share my office line or my email address if that's okay with you, Brandon.
I would love for you to have that opportunity. Thank you for offering that up, Ayla. More than happy to coordinate with our marketing folks. Again, shout out Marissa and Kristen that have made today happen for getting this webinar scheduled. Would love to connect you with anyone in the audience and offer up that office line. Thank you.
Will we do that like afterwards when you email the presentation out, or?
Yeah, I mean, we can do it that way. We can also go ahead and throw it in the chat for our audience today. You can do that on your own, Ayla, if you want. Put that office line, let anyone reach out to you, say hello. Awesome. Okay. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go back and look at some of the questions that were submitted throughout. Let's see. Before I do the first question that was submitted, thanks, Kristen. Marissa, it looks like you said we can share contact information in the email following today's session. Perfect. So yeah, Ayla, if you want to send it over, yep, there it is. There's Ayla's contact information for those that want to get in contact with her directly. We'll have Marissa coordinate on sending that via email today if anyone's not able to get it written down. Let's go back up to the first question that was submitted. Again, Kristen, thanks for sending this over and read it off for the group. You mentioned that you had worried about time earlier. This audience member said, I worry about having to take too much time to train employees to use new software. What was your experience like getting started with Levelset? And Ayla, this audience member might have joined after that portion where we were talking about that. But if you don't mind, maybe real quick hashing over again that portion where you're talking about what it's like to train employees and what it's like getting started with us.
When we first started using Levelset, before we made it just a transfer of a file for the data, I would have my team go through some one-on-one training with me. If they needed more training, then Levelset was very generous with their time and offered to train. Usually what we would do is my folks, when a new order would come in for a construction related project, they would go into our customer database. They would create the service address, which is where we would be delivering our container. And then they would just do a real quick copy paste. So while they're in our it's called a route manager, but when they're in route manager, they would create that account. They would grab the address, then they would simply go over to another screen at Levelset and they would create new project, throw in the customer name, copy and paste all of the service information, which is the project address, start dates, everything that we needed to put into our billing system was exactly what Levelset needed in order to generate the preliminary lien notice. So again, just copy paste over and over again. And while that didn't take very long, that's why we actually decided to move to a more automated system where we could just, instead of copying and pasting all that, our report would pull all of that data in. And then once a day, we would just email that over to Levelset for them to upload. But the training piece of it was just really super simple. That's probably the same for most of the people on the phone as far as getting that order to deliver whatever it is. Maybe it's scaffolding or something. Obviously, the customer is going to tell you where to deliver that material. That's your project address. The date, that you're supposed to deliver it is the first date of substantial service. So on the construction side, the way that Levelset's project creation, the way that your platform works is just intuitively, it's almost exactly what we were doing on our side.
Yeah, that's perfect. So it sounded like we just molded in with some of your needs and preferences there, which is actually one of the questions that we had. And we can finish on this one. It looks like earlier in the conversation, someone had asked a question about being able to fit in with what you already want, what you already envision for a process. And one of the things that oftentimes comes up for that, Ayla, is when people have preferences for certain customers. Like maybe we don't want to send a notice to this particular customer for whatever reason, or we want to send a notice to this particular customer on X day because of an expectation that we set with a salesperson. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. I know we only have one more minute, but could you briefly speak to that and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, again, the way that we handle that now, if the salesperson has said, I always want to send a preliminary lien notice for this particular customer, or I never want to send a notice to that customer. Because of the way our system works, we simply, again, pull up that report. We can, all kinds of different ways to do it in Excel, but we can, filter out or sort out those VIP customers that have an excellent payment history with us, not send anything on those. And then quite frankly, I get that exceptions list from my team and I go and do a little extra vetting and just make sure that the payment history is as good as the salesperson represents it to be. And, if that harder conversation has to happen where, nope, we're not going to accept these, then that moves up to, a different level of the management chain. But it's not difficult. Again, the way we've done this, it's nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't want the customer to get the notice, you delete it off of the sheet and then you email that list over. Levelset only gets the information necessary from us for them to send out the notices, create the projects, and add the timelines.
Beautiful. We'll wrap up with that. Again, if you have any other questions, you can see here on your screen at the bottom. You want to learn more, schedule a call with the Levelset team, levelset.com/contact-us. You now have Ayla's contact information. She's offered it up. Get in contact with her. If you want to get in contact with me as well, brandon.davenport@levelset.com. Happy to field any questions that you might have about what's going on in the market, Ayla's experience, any other of our partners' experience. Have a great rest of your afternoon, and we'll leave with that. Thank you all.